For more than a dozen years, the world has observed a silence, a gulf that opened and widened between one of Hollywood's most celebrated fathers and his only daughter. Now, that unsettling quiet has finally been shattered, revealing a truth far more profound and painful than any fan or critic ever imagined. Suri Noel, the name she chose to embrace, once known simply as Suri Cruise, grew up under a relentless, blinding spotlight she never requested. She was born into unparalleled fame, shrouded in a growing mystery, and ultimately cleaved from her father by forces so monumental a child could never hope to comprehend them. But now, at the threshold of 20, she is no longer relying on simple words. She's speaking with definitive, life-altering choices. And the resonance of that message has absolutely stunned everyone who remembers the glossy, picture-perfect family that once posed, beaming, on the world's most exclusive red carpets. This is not the tabloid version. This is the raw, real narrative of a daughter who was forced to mature while watching her father exist in a distant, unattainable orbit, and the legendary man who could only watch as she quietly, systematically vanished from his sphere. The fateful dream began exactly like a Hollywood blockbuster. When Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes first crossed paths in 2005, their connection instantly became the kind of story that didn't just make headlines. It was the headline before it even had a second act. Katie was 26, radiating the success of Dawson's Creek, a luminous rising actress who possessed the undeniable, relatable charm of a quintessential small-town dreamer. Tom was 43, a living monument, an icon. Top Gun, Jerry Maguire, Mission Impossible. His name alone was enough to guarantee theaters filled to capacity. For Katie, this was far beyond mere professional respect. Years prior, she had candidly confessed to 17 magazine that her ultimate, almost unbelievable dream was to marry Tom Cruise. At the time, it sounded utterly innocent, a charming, girlish fantasy. Absolutely no one could have possibly imagined it would become reality. The moment Tom encountered her for the very first time, he reportedly turned to his closest associates and delivered a prophecy. "I'm going to marry her." Within an impossibly short few weeks, the impossible became undeniable fact. The chemistry was not just noticeable, it was incandescent. The romance was explosive, public, and voracious. They were photographed, inseparable, holding hands in the ancient streets of Rome, their faces etched with the unrestrained joy of laughing teenagers, totally incapable of concealing the depths of their mutual affection. The entire world watched in fascination as Tom, a man usually known for his intense privacy and legendary composure, visibly transformed into a person utterly consumed by an all-encompassing dramatic love. Then arrived the infamous defining moment that permanently altered the global perception of their relationship. His explosive appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, culminating in him wildly jumping on her sofa, his voice booming, "I'm in love." It was undeniably bizarre, utterly unforgettable, and in its own way, pure Tom Cruise. To some viewers, it was the height of grand cinematic romance. To countless others, it was deeply unsettling. But one thing was unanimous. No one could tear their eyes away. On April 18, 2006, their daughter, Suri, was born. She became the beautiful, tangible symbol of their dizzying whirlwind love story. Tom described her arrival with an almost evangelical fervor, calling her birth the happiest day of my life. He was utterly obsessed, referring to her as his miracle. Yet even the life of this miracle child was immediately shaped by the powerful beliefs that had come to govern his existence. Scientology. Katie, a woman who had once been a simple Catholic schoolgirl from Toledo, suddenly found herself desperately navigating a completely new, fundamentally different world. Her entire pregnancy and Suri's birth were governed by strict Scientology customs, including the controversial silent birth, which dictated that no one in the delivery room was permitted to speak. Tom even went so far as to acquire a high-end sonogram machine to personally track the pregnancy. To the outside world, this devotion seemed not just strange, but overtly controlling. To Tom and his circle, however, it was absolute, unflinching devotion. Their wedding that November was a spectacle designed for tabloids and fairy tales, held in the breathtaking 15th-century Odescalchi Castle in Bracciano, Italy. The cost soared past $3 million. Katie wore a flawless Giorgio Armani gown. Tom was radiant with pride. The guest list was a who's who of global celebrity: Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, and the Beckhams. But behind the spectacular smiles, a quiet anxiety was building. Katie's parents were lifelong devout Catholics, and they were profoundly uneasy about the powerful, secretive church that now entirely surrounded their daughter's life. And as they had secretly feared, the Hollywood fairy tale rapidly mutated into something else entirely. A life that became strictly governed by belief, by aggressive secrecy, and by an unseen, controlling power structure. For Tom, it remained love. For Katie, it became the terrifying, slow onset of profound isolation. And for Suri, it was the unexpected, quiet start of a childhood that would never, under any circumstances, be remotely ordinary. By 2007, the public facade of Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes appeared utterly untouchable. They were the reigning golden faces of the definitive Hollywood dream. Red carpets, world travel via private jets, constant magazine covers. To the public eye, they were the absolute perfect family, the world's most powerful actor, his radiantly beautiful wife, and their beautiful, smiling daughter. But just beneath that highly polished image, an insidious fracture was beginning to spread. Friends and acquaintances began to notice a pattern. Katie almost never appeared in public alone. Whenever she ventured out, members of Tom's tightly knit inner circle, almost always deeply connected to Scientology, were never more than a few steps away. Even during the most casual, simple outings, she was constantly shadowed by quiet, watchful figures who seemed to meticulously observe and record every single detail of her behavior. Over an intimate dinner one evening, the esteemed journalist Maureen Orth observed a subtle, persistent unease between them. When a few fans tentatively approached their table, Katie smiled politely, then offered a startling, revealing comment to Orth. "Oh, we don't go outside very much." On the surface, it sounded innocent, a throwaway remark. But to those who understood the stringent, all-encompassing structure of Scientology, it was a profound revelation. Tom, meanwhile, was the same unstoppable force of nature he had always been. Immensely confident, wildly charismatic, and completely fanatically loyal to his faith. He had already cemented his status as one of Scientology's most powerful, outspoken ambassadors, vigorously promoting its celebrity center and fiercely defending it against all critics. To him, the church was not simply a religion. It was the ultimate truth, a non-negotiable discipline, and the only path to salvation. For Katie, however, it quickly morphed into a permanent, unyielding boundary she understood she could never cross. Her parents, Martin and Kathleen Holmes, watched the situation from the outside and grew increasingly, profoundly alarmed. As devout, lifelong Catholics, they had always harbored a deep wariness of Scientology's secretive hierarchy and controlling influence. They began to visit less and less, feeling utterly unsure how they could possibly reach their daughter anymore. Katie's closest friends said she became distant, almost unnervingly robotic, frequently repeating the exact same bland compliments about Tom. "He's amazing. He's wonderful." Her words sounded scripted, as if rehearsed on command. Her formerly bright, independent light was visibly dimming. In the midst of this, Tom's two adopted children with Nicole Kidman, Bella and Connor, were already committed, devoted Scientologists, completely embedded in the organization. For Tom, it was a foregone conclusion, a natural trajectory that Suri would inevitably follow the exact same path. But Katie had reached her limit. She was absolutely not prepared to surrender her only daughter to a rigid, all-consuming system she neither trusted nor truly understood. Slowly, silently, and with incredible stealth, she began to pull herself away. By 2010, whispers were beginning to spread that Katie felt desperately trapped. She had subtly stopped attending some of the required church events, tentatively started reconnecting with old professional colleagues, and began spending considerably more time in New York, always without Tom. Deep behind the scenes, she was diligently gathering information, quietly constructing a plan that would have to be nothing short of monumental. By 2011, the cracks in the facade had become far too large and obvious to conceal. Katie's public smiles grew noticeably stiffer, her every movement became more cautious, more guarded. People who once saw a fairy tale now sensed a palpable fear. And as she began to hold her daughter's hand tighter than ever before, she was already meticulously planning a daring way out, an escape that would very soon shock the entire world and permanently destroy the illusion of Hollywood's perfect family. June 29th, 2012. The world awoke to an absolute paralyzing shock that no one, anywhere, had seen coming. Katie Holmes files for divorce from Tom Cruise. The timing was not accidental. It was cold and calculated, filed just days before his monumental 50th birthday. This was far more than a simple celebrity breakup. It was a precise, high-stakes rescue mission. In interviews conducted much later, Tom admitted he had been utterly blindsided. "It hit me hard," he confessed quietly. "Life can do that to you." Behind the relentless media flurry, Katie had been preparing her audacious move for many months, executing her plan with the chilling precision of someone who knew, with absolute certainty, she was under constant surveillance. She instantly replaced her cell phones, hired completely new security guards, and dismissed staff members she strongly suspected were reporting her every move to Scientology handlers. Every single call, every movement, was meticulously planned and accounted for. Her father, Martin Holmes, a formidable lawyer known for his exceptionally sharp legal mind, became her silent, most critical strategist. He had helped draft a comprehensive prenuptial agreement years earlier, and now he wielded it like a weapon to guarantee her freedom. Katie strategically chose New York as the primary battleground instead of California, keenly aware that its laws heavily favored the parent seeking sole custody. She filed the critical papers entirely in secret, while Tom was halfway across the world, filming Oblivion in Iceland. He reportedly learned about the divorce exactly the same way the rest of the world did, through screaming headlines. For a man who had absolute control over every single aspect of his life, it was the ultimate, shattering loss of control. Court documents later confirmed Katie's singular, driving motive: protection. She demanded and fought for full custody of 6-year-old Suri and complete, non-negotiable authority over every decision concerning her schooling, medical care, and, most critically, her religion. Her deepest fear was not of Tom himself. It was of the intensely powerful, all-consuming church that had completely surrounded them. Former Scientologists later publicly claimed that Katie firmly believed Suri could eventually be sent into the organization's dreaded Sea Org program when she came of age. A horrifying possibility she simply could not and would not accept. The legal war ended almost as abruptly and violently as it had begun. Within an astonishing 11 days, the divorce was finalized. Tom agreed to pay a staggering $400,000 a year in child support, meticulously covering all of Suri's needs until her 18th birthday, plus additional, significant expenses for health insurance and education. But money was never Katie's priority. What she truly craved was distance, legal, physical, and spiritual. The very day after the final settlement, she and Suri abruptly vanished from Los Angeles. They eventually reappeared in New York City, where the paparazzi spotted them walking hand in hand through Chelsea. The handlers, the guards, the carefully staged appearances, all were gone. Katie looked visibly exhausted, but completely, undeniably free. She managed a quiet, genuine smile, the first one captured in years. For Suri, that freedom came with a profound, deafening silence. The father who had once proudly lifted her onto red carpets and publicly proclaimed her his miracle was suddenly, inexplicably, gone. Not through anger, not with a bitter fight, simply gone. And in that terrifying silence, a new life began, one that neither the machinery of Hollywood nor the doctrine of Scientology could ever hope to script. After the dust settled from the divorce, Tom's world and Suri's world split irrevocably in two. In 2013, he provided a rare, candid deposition during a lawsuit and was asked point-blank whether Katie had left him specifically to protect Suri from the pervasive influence of Scientology. Tom visibly bristled, calling the question deeply offensive, but then, under oath, he admitted it was a true assertion. It was the closest he would ever come to publicly acknowledging the root of the massive, unbridgeable divide. That same year, reports circulated that Tom had only seen Suri once since the finalization of the divorce, during a brief, hushed, private meeting. After that, nothing. No photographs surfaced, no confirmed sightings, no recorded visits. In the decade that followed, Tom completely immersed himself in his work, burying himself under the weight of relentless mission, impossible sequels, the triumphant Top Gun, Maverick, global press tours, and death-defying stunts that challenged the very laws of gravity. Every single time he jumped off a sheer cliff or was suspended precariously from a moving plane, fans around the globe cheered in awe. But somewhere, a world away, his youngest daughter was quietly, steadily growing up without him. Meanwhile, Katie focused her entire existence on meticulously building a normal life for Suri. She enrolled her in a prestigious private school in Manhattan, took her regularly to local parks, neighborhood cafes, and dance classes. Friends of the family began to notice that Suri was exceptionally bright, remarkably kind, and surprisingly grounded for a child born into such intense fame. Katie became her impenetrable shield, protecting her fiercely from the harsh glare of the spotlight. There were no more red carpets, no interviews, no Hollywood chaos. By her teenage years, Suri had matured into a flawless mirror image of her mother, the same striking eyes, the same quiet, independent spirit, the same shy, private smile. But whenever her powerful father's name was gingerly raised, she would consistently and politely avoid the subject. Publicly, Tom never uttered her name again. Privately, insiders confirmed he still faithfully paid for her rigorous schooling and all medical expenses. Yet, for an astounding over a decade, they were never once photographed together. The man who could effortlessly command the attention of the entire world could not, or would not, find a path back into his own daughter's life. It was as if two distinct planets had slowly, permanently drifted to opposite, inaccessible sides of the galaxy. By 2021, Suri had successfully carved out her own fiercely independent identity. She was enrolled and diligently studying at New York's prestigious LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts, the very school that famously inspired the movie Fame. She acted, sang, and even directed small short films with her classmates. But one specific decision signaled a shift in identity that was far deeper than simple stage preference. In her senior year musical, The Addams Family, the program listed her name not as Suri Cruz, but as Suri Knoll, using her mother's middle name. This was more than a stage choice. It was a definitive declaration of identity. When she proudly graduated in June 2024, the exact same name appeared on the official commencement list, Suri Knoll. Tom was conspicuously not there. He was thousands of miles away in London, reportedly spotted enjoying a Taylor Swift concert. The brutal contrast was heartbreaking for fans who still remembered the beaming, proud father from 2006. Katie, conversely, was right there in New York, a solitary figure clapping and quietly weeping among the other parents. Her daughter had grown into a poised young woman, and she had accomplished it without the protection of the Hollywood machine or the imposing presence of her father. Later that summer, Suri enrolled at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, choosing to major in fashion. Katie helped her move into her dorm room, personally carrying the boxes herself. There were no cameras, no visible entourage, just a mother and daughter performing the mundane, vital rituals that normal families do. In the fall, Katie directed a new film, Happy Hours, a project that reunited her with her old Dawson's Creek co-star, Joshua Jackson. During the filming in 2025, Suri visited the set, now 19, self-assured and composed. She wore simple khaki pants, a white tank top, and red sneakers, exuding a calm, powerful confidence that the long years of silence had clearly forged. The world barely recognized her, but her personal message was unmistakably clear. She wasn't Tom Cruise's daughter anymore. She was Suri Noel, and she was, unequivocally, finally free. In October 2025, Suri was photographed in New York City, sitting alone on a doorstep, her head bowed and held deeply in her hands. She appeared utterly exhausted, completely lost in a private sea of thought. Moments later, Katie arrived quickly in an Uber, sat immediately beside her, and began to gently comfort her. The two talked quietly, intimately, before walking off together for pastries. To outside observers, it appeared to be a simple, ordinary mother-daughter moment. But for those who have followed their painful, complex story, it felt like a poignant symbol of how completely they have had to lean on each other since the dramatic day everything changed. Suri is now 19, a college sophomore immersed in fashion studies, exploring songwriting, and fiercely defining who she is, entirely on her own terms. Her relationship with her powerful father remains completely non-existent. He continues, by legal agreement, to cover her tuition and health expenses, but they have neither spoken publicly nor been seen together in an astonishing 12 years. Meanwhile, Tom continues to professionally soar to unparalleled heights. He is currently preparing to film scenes in the most extreme location possible, outer space, in partnership with NASA and SpaceX. The man who once effortlessly commanded the top of Hollywood now literally plans to reach beyond Earth itself. But the emotional distance between him and his youngest daughter may ultimately be the one divide he is structurally incapable of ever bridging. Sources close to the family maintain that Katie has worked tirelessly to keep any lingering bitterness completely out of the picture, focusing instead on profound gratitude and forward-looking growth. She publicly calls Suri an incredible person and states that her greatest pride is witnessing her daughter's genuine strength and complete independence. And yet, even within her chosen new identity, Suri inevitably carries the complex, heavy weight of a story that is not hers alone to bear. A story defined by overwhelming love, absolute control, and the staggering, quiet cost of monumental fame. For 19 years, the world has watched this family's story unfold like an epic film without an ending. The father who has given the world countless unforgettable, thrilling performances, and the daughter who quietly, resolutely, chose to step entirely out of his powerful shadow. Now, as Suri Noel constructs a life defined solely by her own values, the most fundamental question remains: will she ever truly let her father back in? Or is this agonizing distance forged by faith and freedom now permanent? What do you believe? Can the passage of time truly heal what a decade of silence has created? Or are some familial divides simply too deep, too fundamental to ever be crossed? Share your thoughts, your personal theories, and your emotional insights in the comments section below. And please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and absolutely hit the notification bell for more stories that courageously reveal the hidden, complex side of fame and family.